Here with Pro Tour Eldritch Moon top 8 competitor Reed Duke. Reed, you're play tested for this event with the Pantheon. The Pantheon decided that Emrakul, the Promised End, was a card they wanted to play with, but you couldn't agree on the path you wanted to take to get to the Promised End.
Right, we identified pretty quickly that this was a extremely powerful card and we all wanted it in our decks in the Pro Tour. What we started with was just a green-black rock deck with, you know, many of the other really good cards in the format, and you even added Ishkana, Graph Widow to the mix, which is great. And then that deck was just playing Emrakul as a late game plan, where maybe before you would have had Dark Petition Seasons Past, or you would have had Great Aurora, or Dragonlord Silumgar, or whatever your finisher of choice was. This was just a lot cleaner. You didn't have to splash a color, you didn't have to devote a lot of slots, just one Emrakul gave you a huge late game plan. We played a lot with that deck and soon got to the point where we're like, well, why are we even bothering with these black and green cards? Maybe we just race to get to Emrakul faster. The deck I ended up playing was a red-green ramp deck. And this is a strategy that existed before Eldritch Moon, but it's improved monumentally. Used to be you would ramp towards Worldbreaker or Dragonlord Atarka, but those aren't cards that necessarily win the game all on their own. So, you know, the level of, we'll call it good fortune that you needed before to be able to ramp smoothly in the early turns, then play multiple of these 7+ mana cards and hope it was good enough. Ramp was just a fringe strategy before. Now, one card usually costs you about 7 mana in the dedicated Delirium decks, and it wins the game a really high portion of the time all on its own.
Reed approached the 13 mana casting cost of Emrakul, the Promised End from 2 different directions. Hedron Crawler, Nissa's Pilgrimage, and Hedron Archive all ramped his mana, while cards like Gather the Pack, Vessel of Nascency, and the breakout card Grapple with the Past all filled his graveyard with different card types to reduce her casting cost. This is a card you expect to see show up. I know you like to play some older formats. Do you expect to see Emrakul, the Promised End show up in formats wider than Standard?
Yeah, I do expect to see this. It's reminiscent of, you know, the original Emrakul or Ugin, something like that, where it's just the power level of this card when it goes onto the stack or when it enters the battlefield is so large that it almost doesn't even matter what the mana cost is. This is a card that people are going to try to play with, and they're going to find ways to play with it.
All right, Reed Duke, he promises you an end. Play Emrakul, you have a lot of different paths to get there. He went red-green ramp.